Hello. Welcome to my space again. My name is Onirida Afunezia Ogenero. I am the training and researching staff at Nurture Child Development Clinic, and today I'll be taking you through 5 common mistakes made by therapists. Let's get into it. The first one is not properly defining a behavior. Defining a behavior is very essential to our work as it really helps a lot in giving us a pathway to how we're going to carry out our interventions. That is one. The second thing is when you define a behavior, it increases in inter-rater reliability as therapist A is seeing what therapist B is seeing and is also measuring accurately what therapist A is measuring. It increases that. And so when you define your behavior, you're going to be taking your data accurately. You're not going to be having issues with, okay, I think he did this like this and he did not do it like this. And then therapist A's data is very different from therapist B's data. And so this is one very common mistake when we don't appropriately or when we don't correctly define the behaviors that we're actually working on. And in our field, we define behaviors either by topography in terms of the way the behavior looks. For example, I am sitting down and my hands, so sitting for me is defined by with my hands on table, right? That's sitting. And so if there are two therapists, every single time my hands are on table and my butt to chair basically is being observed, then I'm sitting. But then if my hands are not there, right, then that's sitting. And so if two therapists are going to look at me, they would say what? I am not sitting. Now, that's by the topography. And then by function, we basically have 4 functions of behaviors, and you can either define the behavior by the function it serves, that's the purpose in which the behavior is, why the child is engaging in that behavior, either for attention or escape or avoidance, or maybe the child wants something, gaining access to something, and then finally maybe the behavior is just an automatic reinforcer, it's sensory, like doing this, something like this, right? So that's one problem basically with therapists not properly defining a behavior. And this leads us to the second common mistakes that therapists do make. The second one is data taking generally. So when you've not properly defined the behavior, measuring the behavior itself is going to be a problem. So you've defined the behavior inappropriately, and then taking your data is going to be another thing. Now you may even define it properly and then you're not even taking the data at all. So you may have a very good definition of what the behavior should look like, right? And then you're not taking data, one. And then when you're not taking data, you're just assuming, okay, the child is not able to do it. And then mommy and daddy is asking you, how well is the child able to, how well can my child do this? And then you're like, he does it consistently. That is not objective, that is subjective, right? And then the truth about it is in applied behavior analysis, you want to be very objective. It's one of the foundational principles that you're objective in whatever you're doing. Your data has to speak to you. Like my boss will say, your data has to speak to you. And if it's not speaking to you, you're probably not taking the data properly, or you're just neglecting certain aspects of the behavior. And so data taking is one common mistakes that therapists do make. You're not taking accurate data. You're not taking data at all. And this goes back from the fact that you're either not defining the behavior accurately or properly for you to even want to know what kind of data you're to take. That's true. And then because your data is not being taken properly, you are staying on a particular strategy for too long, and then you don't even know if the strategy is working or not, or if you're just wiggling it. You're like more just the wiggle and more see as they go, and that doesn't actually help the child. You're wasting the child's time. And so when you take your data, you see that, okay, today I didn't get enough progress and I used this strategy. Tomorrow I didn't get enough progress, and the next day you're doing that, and the third day, fourth day, by the fifth day you're expected to speak to your supervisor and work towards finding a new strategy that would lead to better results with regards to the goals you're working on. And when you are not taking accurate data, or you're not even taking data at all, you have the tendency to continue using that same ineffective strategy, and then you're like, we are pushing through, and then the child is like, your results are telling you that this thing you're doing is not working, or you don't even have results to start with. This thing you're doing is not working, but because you don't have data, you cannot even see that this thing is not working, and then you're like, it's the child that's the problem, whereas you yourself are the problem. In relation to sticking to a strategy for too long, this can also lead you to staying on a goal for too long. And because you're not taking data, you're sticking to the same strategy, you stay on the goal for a long time. You can be on the goal for like 6 months, 7 months, one particular goal. And then you'll be like, mommy, daddy, the child is not yet at that level, whereas it's you that is at fault because you're not even doing the things you're supposed to do. You've not defined the goal, the behavior properly, or maybe even in your definition, you did not task analyze. And then because you've not defined the behavior and you've not done a proper task analysis, you're staying on the same strategy. Or before that self, your data is not even speaking to you because you don't have any data to talk to. And then when you get to your strategies, you're not even changing your strategies. And then you stay on the go for 6 months, 7 months, 8 months. And then you're like, you consistently give, recycle the same feedback to the parents. The child is yet to, the child cannot, the child will not, the child is busy, the child is doing this and all of that. And that is not helping. And even at that, when you're teaching a particular skill or a particular goal, it is very essential for you to use your ABA strategies. And one of those strategies that is almost underwhelmingly used in intervention is the use of reinforcement. And you'd see some therapists who will be in sessions and they are not using any reinforcements. You ask, what's the child's reinforcer? I think the child likes this thing. I think the child likes that. Have you done your preference assessment? And that's a very common mistake because most therapists assume reinforcements. The child is supposed to like it. You're a child. You will like it. I don't care. And that's the truth about it. You don't want your child to You don't want to assume a reinforcement because you believe your child should like it. I've been in a situation where the child just wants rubber band because that's what the child wants. And I carried on my toys and all of that. I carried my phone. The child wants rubber band. I've been in another situation where sellotape is all the child wants, all those rubber sellotape. As long as you can spin it, the child is satisfied. That is what is reinforcing to the child. And so because you're not using your reinforcements, you're not making any progress. You're just trying to the child got it, good job. You're either just maintaining high fives or social praise and all of that. And that is actually not working. Now, in talking about reinforcement, another common mistake is even when you are using reinforcements or you have reinforcements, the reinforcements are not on a schedule. And you either have the continuous reinforcements and you have the intermittent reinforcements. And you go into some, sessions and you ask a therapist questions like, okay, this child now, he's showing consistency. What is the schedule of reinforcement you are using? Now, the truth about it is a reinforcement, yes, it strengthens the behavior, but for the reinforcement to work, it has to be placed on a schedule because the child has to expect something. Your salary is placed on a schedule, is placed on a monthly schedule. And hence, for you to do your work, for you to know what is, for you to know that, okay, something is going to come, I have to do my work very well, you have to place it on a schedule. That involves or implies that when you are using your reinforcement, in the beginning, you want to start with your continuous every single time the child engages in the desired behavior. Good job, take this, well done, stuff like that. But then as the child gains more mastery, you want to use your fixed interval, your fixed ratio, your variable interval, your variable ratio. That's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to place your reinforcements on a schedule for it to be very effective. It's not just about giving reinforcements, it's to ensure that the reinforcements are on a schedule that, that can be easily faded out. That's what you're supposed to do. So you don't just start with a reinforcement day and then you assume that, okay, the child has learned it, there is no need to give a reinforcement. You gradually fade it out. And that's why your reinforcements have to be on a schedule. Now, that leads us to the last thing, which is generalization. And you can see I've gone from defining behavior to, data taking to staying too long on a particular goal because your strategies are not even working and hence you have to stay on a particular goal, right? And then to reinforcement. And the last thing is, okay, let's assume you've defined the behavior, very good. You've taken accurate data, very, very good. You've always allowed your data to talk to you, and when you notice your intervention is not working, you change your strategies and all of that, very, very good. You're not staying too long on a goal, very, very good. And then you're using your reinforcements as you're supposed to use them. Amazing, beautiful, good job. Have you generalized? Have you ensured that the skill is carried out at home, at school, in the clinic or wherever, have you tried to ensure that the child is able to engage in that particular behavior with 2 or 3 more people outside yourself? Have you tried to ensure that? And you'd find out that most therapists will say the child has mastered it 80%. That's just mastery. That's mastery with you, 80%. But then if you change hands, if you bring another therapist, you bring another person, you bring mommy or daddy, you bring a sibling to carry out that skill, is the child going to engage in that behavior with a different face? Possibly no. And that's because you've not created opportunities for the child to generalize that skill. And one way you'd want to do that is you want to give assignments. You want to ensure that parents are involved in sessions. Oh, mommy, can you do this at home? Here is how you can do this, so that, and that's one way you can ensure that generalization occurs. The child is in school, oh, Mrs. So and so, Mr. So and so, can you do this, so that the child will, that's one way you encourage generalization. Generalization is very important and it's very essential in the work we do. And so, with these few points of mine, I'm very sure I've been able to outline 5 common mistakes that therapists do make in carrying out intervention. See you soon.